I never saw it coming. For 34 years, I thought I knew what family meant. Growing up with my single mom in Chicago, I became the man of the house early on. Now, as a successful software engineer in Boston, I've spent years making sure mom had everything she needed. The mortgage payments, the European vacation, the kitchen renovation, all my way of saying thank you. Then I found the will. Everything. The house savings possessions. All going to my younger brother Jackson. Just $5,000 for me. I couldn't breathe. Before I continue my story, where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to join our storytelling community. Stay with me to discover how I learned what family loyalty really means when your sacrifices go unnoticed. The earliest memory I have of understanding responsibility was when I was 8 years old. My father had just left disappearing from our suburban Chicago home one Tuesday morning. My brother Jackson was only 3 at the time, too young to really understand what was happening. But I remember sitting at our kitchen table as my mom, Diane, eyes red and puffy, explained that it would be just the 3 of us now. "Emmanuel," she had said, placing her hand on mine, "you're going to need to be my big helper now." And I took that role seriously. While Mom worked multiple nursing shifts to keep us afloat, I made sure Jackson got dressed for preschool. I learned to make simple meals, fold laundry, and keep our small house relatively clean. By the time I was 12, I was practically a third parent, helping Jackson with homework, attending his parent-teacher conferences, when Mom couldn't get time off, and making sure he had everything he needed. "You're such a responsible boy," relatives would say at family gatherings, ruffling my hair. Such a good son. I thrived on those words, building my identity around being the dependable one, the rock my mother could lean on. In high school, while other kids were out partying, I was maintaining a perfect GPA, working part-time at the local grocery store, and still handling most household responsibilities. Jackson, meanwhile, struggled academically and socially, requiring more of Mom's attention and energy when she wasn't working. Our evenings often consisted of Mom helping Jackson with assignments while I handled dinner preparation. "We're a team, you and me," Mom would say during our late-night talks after Jackson had gone to bed. She confided in me about work stress, financial worries, and her fears about Jackson's development. It created a bond between us that felt unbreakable. I was her confidant, her support system. When I'm old, she'd joke, "I know who I'm counting on." "Don't worry, Mom," I'd always respond. "When I'm successful, I'll take care of everything." It wasn't just a child's promise. It became my mission. When college acceptance letters arrived, I chose the university that offered the best computer science program with the most generous scholarship package. Even then, I worked 20 hours weekly at the campus tech help desk, while maintaining Dean's List status every semester. Weekends and holidays were spent back home helping Mom with Jackson, who by then was showing clear signs of lacking motivation and direction. I graduated with honors, landing a job at a prestigious tech company in Boston. The starting salary was more than Mom had ever made after 20 years of nursing. The day I received my offer letter, I called her immediately. "Mom, I got the job," I exclaimed, barely able to contain my excitement. "That's wonderful, sweetie," she replied, pride evident in her voice. "I always knew good things would happen for you. And you know what this means," I added. "I can finally start taking care of you like I promised." I still remember her choked-up response. "You've always been my blessing, Emmanuel." My career trajectory exceeded even my ambitious expectations. Within 3 years, I received 2 significant promotions, moving from entry-level developer to senior software engineer. By year 5, I was leading my own team. Now, after 10 years with the company, I hold a director-level position with a comfortable 6-figure salary, stock options, and excellent benefits. My financial success translated directly into support for Mom. It started with helping her catch up on bills and small home repairs. Then, 6 years ago, I established a formal system of support. Each month, I transferred $1,000 into her account for discretionary spending. "Mom, this is for whatever makes you happy," I told her. "You've sacrificed enough." When she mentioned her mortgage was becoming difficult to manage on her nursing salary, I didn't hesitate. I paid off the remaining $180,000 in a single transaction. Consider it done. I told her when she protested that it was too much. "You gave me a home my entire life. This is the least I can do." For her 60th birthday, I funded her dream trip to Europe, to $15,000, for a luxury 3-week tour through Italy, France, and Spain. Take lots of pictures, I encouraged her. This is what all those double shifts were for. Last Christmas, I surprised her with a new SUV. $35,000 for a vehicle with all the safety features and comfort options I knew would make her daily commute easier. And just 3 months ago, I completed a $30,000 renovation of her outdated kitchen with quartz countertops, stainless steel appliances, and the farmhouse sink she had always wanted. "You're too generous," my girlfriend Sophia often commented. We met at a tech conference 4 years ago, and she moved into my Boston condo last year. "Don't you think you're doing too much?" I always defended my choices. She worked 3 jobs sometimes when we were kids. Sophia. Nothing I do could ever repay that. While I was building my career and supporting Mom, Jackson seemed perpetually stuck in a cycle of false starts. He dropped out of community college after one semester, claiming it wasn't for him. Since then, he's worked sporadically at a local bar, often calling in sick or simply not showing up for shifts. His pattern of irresponsibility extended to numerous failed ventures: a dog-walking business that lasted 3 weeks, an online dropshipping store that never made a single sale, and most recently a food truck idea that never progressed beyond a business plan sketched on napkins. Each venture inevitably led to phone calls asking for loans, funds that were never repaid or accounted for. "Emmanuel, your brother is just trying to find his passion," Mom would explain when I expressed frustration. "Not everyone knows their path as early as you did. He needs time to find himself." I would bite my tongue, reminding myself that Mom's protective instinct toward Jackson came from a place of love. Still, at 31 years old, it seemed my brother should have found himself by now. Despite these frustrations, I never questioned my role or my relationship with Mom. I believed wholeheartedly that we understood each other, that our bond was based on mutual respect and appreciation. That belief sustained me until a seemingly ordinary weekend visit changed everything. The discovery happened during Mom's birthday weekend last month. I had flown in from Boston on Friday evening, planning a special dinner at her favorite restaurant on Saturday. Jackson was supposed to help with preparations, but predictably he was running late from whatever he had deemed more important. While waiting for my brother to arrive, I decided to look for the old family photo album to create a digital copy as an additional gift. Mom had mentioned it was somewhere in her home office, so I began searching through cabinets and drawers. In the bottom drawer of her desk, beneath some insurance papers, I found a manila envelope labeled "Will and Testament," updated. My hand hesitated over it. This wasn't what I was looking for, and it felt invasive to look. But something, intuition perhaps, made me open it. The document was dated just 3 months earlier, around the time I had paid for her kitchen renovation. The language was formal and clear. "I, Diane Marie Wilson, being of sound mind, hereby bequeath all my worldly possessions, including my home at 1427 Oakwood Lane, all financial accounts, investments, personal property, and any insurance. Proceeds to my son Jackson Thomas Wilson." My eyes scanned further down, finding a small paragraph near the end. "To my son Emmanuel James Wilson, I leave the sum of $5,000 in recognition of his success and financial stability." $5,000. After everything I had done, after all the support, the gifts, the mortgage payoff, $5,000 in recognition of his success, as if my success somehow disqualified me from being valued equally in her final wishes. I felt physically ill, my hands trembling as I continued looking through the envelope. Behind the will was email correspondence between Mom and her lawyer. One exchange particularly stood out. "I want to make sure this will is challenge-proof," Mom had written. "Emmanuel can be stubborn when he feels something is unfair. As long as you're of sound mind," the lawyer responded, "your wishes will stand. It might help to include a token bequest to Emmanuel so it doesn't appear you forgot him entirely." A token bequest. As if I were a distant cousin or casual acquaintance, not her firstborn son who had dedicated his life to supporting her. I carefully replaced everything, my mind racing with questions and justifications. There must be some mistake. Perhaps this was an old draft that didn't reflect her current thinking. Maybe she had logical reasons I couldn't see from this single document. Somehow I made it through her birthday dinner that evening, smiling weakly as extended family gathered around. Jackson arrived 40 minutes late with a hastily purchased card and no gift. No one seemed to notice my distraction as I mechanically participated in conversations while my world quietly imploded. That night, lying in my childhood bedroom, sleep eluded me. I stared at the ceiling decorated with the glow-in-the-dark stars I had put up at age 10, trying to make sense of what I had discovered. By morning, I knew I needed answers. I found Mom alone in the kitchen early Sunday, preparing coffee. I took a deep breath and asked directly, "Mom, I accidentally found your will yesterday. Can we talk about it?" Her expression immediately shifted from morning pleasantness to defensive wariness. "You were going through my private papers. I was looking for the photo album." It was an accident, I explained, already feeling like I was in the wrong despite the shocking content I had discovered. "But Mom, everything to Jackson, the house I helped pay off, all your savings, and just $5,000 to me, I don't understand." She sat down slowly, both hands clutching her coffee mug. "Emmanuel, you're financially secure. You make more money than Jackson and I combined could ever dream of. He needs security for his future." "But Mom," I struggled to keep my voice steady, "most of your financial security came from me. The mortgage, the renovations, those were gifts." She interrupted, her tone hardening slightly. "Gifts don't come with conditions." I felt as though I'd been slapped. I never said they did. But this feels like I don't matter as much. "Don't be dramatic," she sighed. "You don't need anything from me. Jackson does. It's that simple." I tried to understand her perspective to see how this made sense in her mind. "Is this because you think I don't need it? Or is there something else going on? What else would there be?" She stood up abruptly, effectively ending the conversation. "I have to get ready for church. We can talk about this another time if you're still upset." I left earlier than planned that afternoon, the 4-hour drive back to Boston, giving me plenty of time to replay our brief, unsatisfying conversation. By the time I reached my condo, the initial shock had given way to a deep, aching hurt that I couldn't shake. She said what Sophia's eyes widened as I recounted the weekend's events. We sat on our balcony overlooking the Boston skyline, the evening air cool against my face. "That they were gifts without conditions," I repeated, still struggling to process it myself, as if I was being transactional by even asking about the will. Sophia placed her hand over mine. "Emmanuel, I think it might be time to look at the bigger pattern here. This doesn't feel right." Her suggestion prompted me to do something I had never considered before. The following day, I reviewed my financial records, tracking every dollar I had sent to Mom over the years. The total was staggering, well over $300,000, not including monthly transfers. But the deeper investigation revealed something more disturbing. I found evidence in bank statements and casual comments in old emails that suggested Mom had been redirecting significant portions of my financial support to Jackson. The new gaming system he suddenly acquired after I sent money for Mom's property taxes. The work truck he briefly owned around the time I financed Mom's bathroom updates. Then came a particularly painful discovery. Last year, I had given Mom a pair of sapphire earrings for her birthday, $3,000 from a local jeweler. 2 months later, in a family photo shared on social media, they were nowhere to be seen. A quick search revealed the same jeweler had a buyback program. When I called on a hunch, the jeweler confirmed that Diane Wilson had indeed sold back a pair of sapphire earrings, receiving nearly $2,000. That money, I later discovered through casual conversation with a mutual friend, had funded Jackson's failed food truck venture, a project Mom had never mentioned to me, despite our regular calls. The revelations kept coming. Conversations with extended family revealed how Mom had consistently downplayed my achievements while exaggerating Jackson's potential. My cousin Thomas mentioned offhandedly, "Aunt Diane always says you just got lucky with that tech job. That it practically fell into your lap." Fell into my lap. After years of perfect grades, unpaid internships, networking events, and countless hours studying while working part-time. Another cousin shared that Mom had described my lifestyle as flashy and selfish, suggesting I cared more about material things than family. This characterization stunned me. My 2-bedroom condo and 5-year-old car hardly qualified as flashy, and I had dedicated a significant portion of my income to supporting her for years. Meanwhile, she portrayed Jackson to everyone as finding himself and exploring his creative potential, rather than acknowledging his pattern of irresponsibility and financial dependence. The growing evidence of this double standard began affecting my daily life. I found myself distracted at work, missing deadlines and snapping at colleagues. Sleep became elusive, and my appetite diminished. After 2 weeks of this, I took Sophia's advice and scheduled an appointment with a therapist. What you're describing sounds like a lifelong pattern of unequal expectations and treatment, Doctor. Lillian Kumar observed during our third session. Have you considered that this might have been happening long before the Will incident? Her question prompted me to reflect on my childhood through a new lens. I remembered how Jackson's mediocre report cards were celebrated if he simply passed while my excellent grades were expected. How my basketball trophies were stored in boxes in the attic while Jackson's participation certificates for a summer art program were prominently displayed. I recalled sacrificing college visits to watch Jackson when Mom worked weekends, turning down social invitations to help with household responsibilities, and postponing my first serious relationship because family comes first. All while Jackson enjoyed normal teenage experiences without similar expectations. You've been conditioned to derive your value from what you provide, Dr. Kumar suggested. And Sophia is right. You've been enabling a dynamic that isn't healthy for anyone involved, including Jackson. The resentment grew as these realizations crystallized. I found myself avoiding Mom's calls, making excuses about work deadlines when she asked why I seemed distant. After a month of minimal contact, I decided it was time for an honest conversation. I needed to address not just the will, but the larger pattern it represented. I planned a weekend visit, telling Mom I wanted to talk through some important matters calmly and constructively. What I didn't expect was arriving to find Jackson's car in the driveway. Mom had invited him without informing me, effectively ensuring our conversation couldn't happen privately. Dinner that evening was tense, with Mom making forced conversation about neighborhood gossip while Jackson scrolled through his phone between bites. After we finished eating, I asked if we could talk about what I had discovered. Now isn't a good time, Mom deflected. Let's just enjoy our evening. I came specifically to discuss this, I insisted. It's important to me. Jackson looked up from his phone. Discuss what? Before I could decide how to respond, Mom sighed dramatically. Emmanuel found my will and is upset about the arrangements. Seriously, Jackson snorted. You make 6 figures and you're worried about Mom's house. That's pretty materialistic, bro. This isn't about money, I tried to explain. It's about what it represents. It's about patterns I'm starting to see more clearly. What patterns? Mom's voice took on a defensive edge. The different standards you've held us to our entire lives. The way my support has been taken for granted while Jackson's smallest efforts are celebrated. The fact that I've been financially supporting this household for years while simultaneously being excluded from it in your final arrangements. That's not fair, Mom interjected. Jackson needs security. You don't. Has Jackson ever held a job for more than a few months? I asked, frustration mounting. Has he ever contributed consistently to this household? Not everyone can be perfect like you, Jackson spat. Mom placed her hand on his arm. Your brother has different strengths. He's creative. Do you expect him to ever be financially independent? I pressed. Be honest, Mom. The silence that followed was answer enough. So I'm supposed to continue supporting both of you indefinitely, while being treated as less important? My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. How is that fair? You've always been jealous of your brother, Mom said quietly, always competing for attention. The accusation landed like a physical blow. Jealous. I've spent my entire life picking up his slack. I raised you to take care of this family, not complain about it, she retorted. If you're keeping score, maybe those gifts weren't really gifts at all. Something broke inside me at those words. I stood up abruptly, grabbing my jacket from the back of the chair. Emmanuel, don't be dramatic, Mom called, as I headed for the door. I'm done, I replied, my voice surprisingly steady despite the chaos inside. I need some space to think about all this. The last thing I heard as I closed the door was Jackson saying, "C always makes everything about himself." The drive back to Boston passed in a blur. My phone buzzed repeatedly with texts from Mom, alternating between demands that I returned to finish our conversation like an adult and accusations that I was being selfish and oversensitive. Around midnight, as I was trying to process the evening's events with Sophia, Jackson called. Against my better judgment, I answered. "You need to apologize to Mom," he slurred, clearly intoxicated. "She's really upset." "I'm not the one who needs to apologize," I replied evenly. "You've always thought you're better than us," he continued, his words becoming more venomous. "With your fancy job and your Boston apartment, you think you're so special." I remained silent, unwilling to engage with his drunken tirade. "You know what Mom told me," once he continued. "She said you were difficult from birth, that you never smiled as a baby, always crying and demanding attention. She said I was her easy child." The comment stung more than I wanted to admit, but I focused on keeping my breathing steady. "And you know what else?" Jackson's voice took on a mocking tone. "She promised me years ago that everything would go to me in the end. We talked about it way before she updated her will. All while you were sending your guilty conscience money." "What did you just say?" My voice had dropped to a whisper. "You heard me. We've had an understanding for years. Mom knows you just throw money at her because you feel obligated. It's not like you actually care enough to be here." The room seemed to tilt around me. "So while I was paying off her mortgage and funding her retirement account, you two were planning this arrangement." "Don't act so shocked," Jackson laughed. "You got what you wanted. The successful career far away from your family responsibilities. Mom and I are the ones who stayed. We're her real support system." I ended the call without another word, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my temples. The betrayal wasn't just about the will anymore. It was about years of deception while accepting my financial support. Sophia found me on the bathroom floor 20 minutes later, struggling to breathe through what I later learned was a panic attack. The room spun, my chest constricted, and I couldn't stop the shaking in my hands. She drove me to the nearest urgent care center where a doctor warned me about the physical toll severe stress could take. "Your blood pressure is dangerously elevated," he cautioned. "Whatever is causing this level of stress needs to be addressed before it causes lasting damage." In the sterile hospital room, watching Sophia fill out my paperwork with worried glances in my direction, I hit rock bottom. How had I allowed my sense of family obligation to threaten my health, my relationship, and my peace of mind? "Your family is using you," Sophia said gently later that night, as we lay in bed staring at the ceiling. "They're taking advantage of your generosity and your need for their approval. You deserve better, Emmanuel." For the first time, I allowed myself to fully accept this truth. The following week, I took time off work and drove to a remote cabin in the New Hampshire mountains. I needed space away from everyone, Mom, Jackson, even Sophia temporarily, to process everything and decide how to move forward. Among the towering pines and peaceful stillness, I hiked for hours each day, the physical exertion helping to clear my mind. In the evenings, I journaled extensively, tracing patterns from childhood through present day with a clarity I had never before allowed myself. I realized how completely I had built my identity around being the provider, the responsible son, the family problem solver, the financial safety net. I had equated giving money with giving love and had accepted scraps of appreciation in return. What would happen if I stopped? I wrote one evening, "Who would I be without this role?" The question terrified me at first. Then slowly it became liberating. Upon returning to Boston, I continued intensive therapy sessions focused on establishing healthy boundaries and recognizing my own worth outside of what I provided for others. Dr. Kumar introduced me to a support group for adult children of emotionally manipulative parents, where I found community with others navigating similar painful realizations. "You're experiencing what we call the sunk cost fallacy," one group member explained. "The idea that because you've already invested so much, you need to keep going. But sometimes the healthiest thing is to cut your losses." Through these sessions, I gradually accepted the painful truth that Mom's love had been conditional in ways I hadn't allowed myself to see, that her expectations of me versus Jackson had never been equal, that I had been enabling a dynamic that was unhealthy for everyone involved, including Jackson, who had never been required to develop independence. After 6 weeks of soul-searching therapy and consultation with a financial advisor, I was ready for a final conversation with Mom. I crafted a detailed plan, rehearsed my points with Dr. Plans, Kumar, and drove back to Chicago with a clarity and resolve I had never felt before. I requested that Jackson not be present, and surprisingly, Mom agreed. We sat across from each other at her kitchen table, the very table where 26 years earlier she had first told me I needed to be her big helper. I've done a lot of thinking, I began calmly, and I've realized some patterns in our relationship that need to change. Mom folded her hands on the table, her expression guarded. You're still upset about the will. This goes well beyond the will, I explained, maintaining steady eye contact. The will was just what finally made me see everything clearly. I presented evidence of the years of inequality, the redirected funds, the different standards and expectations, the comments to family members diminishing my achievements while exaggerating Jackson's potential. Mom initially dismissed my points, then grew angry when I remained calm and firm. So, you've been keeping receipts, tracking every dollar like some kind of accountant. That's not what family does. Family also doesn't consistently favor one child while exploiting the other, I replied evenly. As our conversation continued, Mom's defenses gradually crumbled. Tears filled her eyes as she finally admitted what I had suspected. Jackson has always needed me more. He's more fragile than you. You were always so capable, so independent, even as a little boy. That doesn't make it fair to treat us differently, I said gently. My capability doesn't make me less deserving of equal consideration and respect. What do you want from me, Emmanuel? She asked tiredly. I'm making some changes, I explained. The monthly transfers will stop. I won't be funding any more renovations or major purchases. If you need emergency assistance, we can discuss it case by case, but my automatic financial support is ending. Her expression shifted from disbelief to shock. After everything I sacrificed for you, this is how you repay me. I'm also requesting that if you want to continue having a relationship with me, we attend family counseling together, you, me, and Jackson. We need to address these patterns with professional help. Mom's face hardened. So your love comes with conditions now. No, I corrected gently. My love is unconditional. My financial support and time investment are not. There's a difference. She stood up, pacing the kitchen I had recently paid to renovate. If you can't help your family without all these conditions, maybe you're not the son I thought you were. I stood as well, surprisingly steady despite the emotional turbulence. I'm exactly the son you raised me to be, responsible, hardworking, and generous. But I'm done supporting someone who doesn't value me equally. As I walked out the door, Mom called after me, her voice breaking. Emmanuel, don't do this. We can figure something out. But for the first time in my life, I kept walking without turning back to fix everything. The 3 months following that conversation were some of the most difficult and ultimately transformative of my life. Mom and Jackson launched an initial barrage of calls, texts, and even emails to my work account. The messages cycled predictably through guilt, anger, manipulation, and eventually desperate pleas as they realized I was serious. I redirected the funds previously sent to Mom toward my retirement account and established a scholarship for first-generation college students from my old neighborhood, a more meaningful legacy than enabling dependency. Extended family members took sides once word spread about our estrangement. Some supported my decision to establish boundaries, while others labeled me selfish and ungrateful. I lost relationships with people I had thought would understand, but gained deeper connections with those who recognized the unhealthy dynamic I had escaped. My relationship with Sophia deepened through the crisis. Witnessing her unwavering support and refusal to let me backslide into old patterns confirmed what I had begun to suspect, that this was the woman I wanted to build my future with. I began researching engagement rings, planning a proposal for her birthday in December. Surprisingly, my father reached out after hearing about the situation through mutual acquaintances. Now living in Arizona with his second family, he expressed regret for his absence and offered perspective on the patterns he had observed before leaving. While our relationship remained tentative, his validation of my experiences provided unexpected healing. I focused intensively on self-care and personal growth. Therapy continued weekly. I joined a rock climbing gym, finding both physical challenge and meditative focus in scaling walls. I reconnected with friends I had neglected while prioritizing family obligations. I practiced saying no without guilt, a simple word that had previously felt impossible. The grief process for the mother-son relationship I thought I had was non-linear and profound. Some days I questioned my decisions, tempted to fall back into familiar patterns. Other days brought anger so intense, I struggled to channel it productively. But gradually, acceptance and peace became more frequent visitors. After 3 months of minimal contact, I received an email from Mom that suggested a shift in her thinking. "I've been reflecting on our last conversation," she wrote. "While I still believe I did what I thought was best, I can see now that my favoritism toward Jackson was unfair to you. I never meant to make you feel less valued or appreciated. Is there any way we could meet and talk?" We arranged to meet at a neutral coffee shop halfway between Chicago and Boston, with my therapist joining virtually for the first half hour. Mom arrived looking older and more subdued than I remembered. "I'm sorry, Emmanuel," she began tearfully after we had settled with our drinks. "I took advantage of your generosity. I convinced myself it was okay because you were successful, but that wasn't fair. Thank you for acknowledging that I responded careful to maintain my boundaries, despite her obvious distress." "Will you start sending money again?" she asked, revealing that despite her apology, she hadn't fully understood the situation. "No, Mom. I forgive you, but forgiveness doesn't mean resuming financial support. Our relationship needs to be based on mutual respect, not transactions." She struggled visibly with this concept, having grown accustomed to equating my love with financial provision. We discussed what a new relationship might look like: regular calls, occasional visits, clear boundaries around money and expectations. Jackson remained angry, refusing to join any family sessions and sending occasional hostile messages that I chose not to engage with. Mom reported he had recently found steadier work at a local warehouse, suggesting that the change in support system had forced some positive development. Our first holiday with the new boundaries was awkward but necessary. I visited for 2 days, rather than my usual week, stayed at a hotel instead of Mom's house, and brought modest gifts, rather than the extravagant presents of past years. Mom vacillated between genuine efforts to rebuild our relationship and slipping back into guilt-inducing comments about my new rules. "It's not about rules," I explained patiently during one such moment. "It's about respect. 1 year after discovering the will that changed everything, I find myself in a fundamentally different place. Engaged to Sophia, promoted to a new leadership role at work, and maintaining a manageable, boundaried relationship with Mom. Our weekly calls focus on genuine connection rather than financial requests or problem solving. Jackson and I exchange civil but distant text messages on birthdays and holidays, a relationship that may or may not deepen with time. The most profound change has been internal. I no longer measure my worth by what I provide to others. I've learned that true generosity comes from choice, not obligation, and that enabling dependency ultimately hurts everyone involved. I understand now that genuine love includes respect, fairness, and appropriate boundaries, elements that had been missing from my family dynamic. As Sophia and I plan our wedding and discuss starting our own family someday, I'm deeply committed to creating a home where love is shown through consistent actions, as well as words, where expectations are fair, and where each person's worth isn't tied to what they provide. The pain of recognizing my mother's conditional love has gradually transformed into wisdom and strength. I've redefined what family means on my own terms, valuing chosen connections that bring genuine joy and mutual respect. And in doing so, I've finally learned to truly value myself. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who took your generosity for granted? What helped you through that process? Share your experience in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about navigating complex family dynamics. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do for others and yourself is to establish healthy boundaries.